Throughout history, we see contradictions and inconsistencies when it comes to the implementation of human rights. A stark example is the annexation of Hawaii. Queen Liliuokalani, in her quest to reduce foreign influence, was overthrown by American and European businessmen with U.S. backing in 1893. Despite violating international law, the protests were disregarded, and Hawaii was annexed in 1898. Her struggle against this unlawful takeover echoes the Hawaiian resistance, yet the world turned a blind eye. Then, we witnessed the end of slavery in the United States. It's interesting to note that the tax income for the U.S. government tripled after slavery was abolished. This begs the question, was the end of slavery driven by newfound respect for human rights, or by the prospect of increased tax revenue? Fast forward to the late 20th century, when the United States, having condemned Nazi Germany's treatment of Jews, was still mired in its own battle against segregation. Despite movements like Black Power demanding an end to discrimination and celebrating African American heritage, Black Americans continue to face systemic racism and inequality. In some instances, such as the end of slavery and the rise of the feminist movement, it's challenging to criticize their motivations without sounding insensitive. Could it be that progress is intentionally implemented to prevent a societal upheaval reminiscent of the French Revolution? But when there is no threat of a civil war, then any progress is delayed. Consider the housing market, a system built on inequality that's widely accepted as normal. A truly equal housing market would see renters acquiring stocks in their homes until they own the property outright. Should they move, they'd have their share of stocks purchased by the new people living in the house and assume ownership of stocks from previous occupants of their new home. This would create a continued exchange of house ownership, not through a single purchase or by paying rent, which is akin to simply burning your money. This could be a model for global housing equality. But there may be other suggestions out there. In conclusion, the history of human rights is fraught with inconsistencies and contradictions. From the annexation of Hawaii to the end of slavery, from the struggle against segregation to the housing market, the implementation of human rights often seems to be influenced by power, resources, and the threat of societal upheaval. But remember, I am Artorius the Great, the Emperor of Laconic Utopia, inviting you to question, to think, and to challenge the status quo. Let's continue this dialogue and push for a world where human rights are more than just an illusion. A voiceover. As we turn the page from our previous discourse, it is essential to remember that there are some societal members who often face an inequality they can never outrun: the orphans of our world. These innocent beings grapple with a system that often denies them access to equal opportunities. But imagine, my dear viewers, a world where a truly equal inheritance model exists. A model where, upon death, an individual's wealth is shared with every human being alive at that exact moment. A world where everyone has an equal start. A world where no child is left behind. We are at the precipice of technological advancements that could implement such a model. But just like with the fight against segregation and the housing market inequalities, there will be resistance, there will be challenges. They can try to delay the progress of human rights, but they cannot stop it. Let us remember, the fight for equality is a marathon, not a sprint. And as we continue to run this race, let us not forget the orphans, for they too deserve a chance at the finish line. Voiceover. The question of privilege is one that has been posed time and time again throughout history. Notably, in the movie Django Unchained, Samuel L. Jackson's character presents a compelling perspective on this matter. He portrays a character who, despite being granted certain privileges, turns a blind eye to the social plight of his fellow beings. This brings us to a crucial juncture in our discussion. When you, dear viewers, are granted privileges, what will your choice be? Will you use your privilege to uplift those around you, or will you too ignore the social inequalities that persist? The sad reality is that the fight for human rights often gets sidelined when individuals are granted entitlements. And this is exactly how the strategy of divide and conquer works. Give a few people rights and the fight for universal human rights gets neglected. The goal, it seems, is not to establish a system of true equality, but to prevent a full-scale societal uprising akin to the French Revolution. So, as we navigate through this complex world of privilege, rights, and equality, let's ask ourselves, how many people need to be granted human rights before we can continue to ignore the broader issue of inequality? And when faced with privilege, will we use it to uplift others, or will we turn a blind eye to the social plight? These are the questions that will define our path towards a more equal society.